in this chapter titled Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening. So far we have discussed how Diti was afflicted by sexual desires, and Kaśyapa is trying to make her understand. But this was also stated, Kaśyapa was also not so determined in his convincing act. In the previous verse, it was mentioned that Kaśyapa was a henpecked husband who was not able to actually convince her or not able to actually guide her properly. So, because of that act, so now in this today's verses, it's mentioned that so Kaśyapa is trying again to convince her that he said that you wait for a while. This time is not suitable for the intercourse, but still Diti was insisting. So he's giving reasons why he is insisting her to wait. So here in this verse it was mentioned that Esha Goratama Vela. Vela means, we say no, Bhoduli Mela. Mela means a time period. So Vela, Ghoratama Vela means Ghora, it's a superlative degree. Ghoratama. So it's horrible, more horrible and most horrible. So why it is most horrible? What is going to happen in that period? Krishna also tells no in the Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter. Confidential, more confidential and most confidential. Paramaguhiyatamam. So that means with a great importance, with great intensity, Krishna is stressing upon the point that what instruction I am going to give, it's going to be the most confidential. So here Kardama Muni, Kaśyapa Muni is also trying to impress his wife that this period is Ghoratama Vela. It's a most inauspicious. Why is that? Because some of the condemned living entities like ghosts, bhutas, pichasas, those who doesn't have gross body, so they travel with Lord Shiva. They take shelter of Lord Shiva first. For what reason? It was mentioned here that they follow him or take shelter of him for their own welfare. Because as living entities, as jivas, suppose any person, any animal, if they want to enjoy, they need a gross body. You cannot, you are imagining that I am eating rasgulla. Does that satisfy our hunger? Mentally we may become imagine rasgulla, a sweet shop filled with sweets, but it doesn't satisfy unless we eat. So similar is the condition of these living entities. They can just see, they can just experience, but they will not be able to enjoy. They will not be able to undergo because they don't have gross body. To take that gross body, so they come to the shelter of Lord Shiva. And what Lord Shiva does, he travels them sitting on his Vahana, bull, Rishabha. Here is mentioned as Rishabha, Rushanateti Bhutarat. So he is known as actually Bhutanatha. He is the master of all those living entities, and he is traveling on the back of his bull carrier. And when he is traveling, all his companions, ghosts, they will be following him. So what he does is that to give them liberation, to show them the path of self-realization, so he puts them into some womb. So on what condition, what is the criteria? So any man and woman, when they are engaged in such sexual intercourse at that point of time, in the evening when Shiva is roaming around, so he puts those ghostly spirits, living entities without the gross body, into the wombs of those women. So because of that, here Kaśyapa is saying that this particular period is Ghoratama Vela. So this is the most inauspicious time. So let this act, the request which you are making, even though it's ethically correct, what for she is requesting? Basically, she was inflicted with sexual desire, but in the previous verses it was mentioned, she is also giving logics that Kardama had many wives, all of them had good children, good progenies, but she didn't had any children at all. She's requesting her husband. So as a woman, it's my right to request for a child from the husband. So now as an husband, it's your duty to fulfill that desire. So all those, moral quotations also she was quoting. So here Kaśyapa Muni is saying, please wait for a while. So now question comes, the pastimes like this, where, Kaśyapa's intercourse with Diti or any other pastimes, why it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam? Because we have heard Srimad Bhagavatam as the, most condensed of all the Vedic literatures. It's a saram samudritam, and it actually meant only for its, so more the devotees, those who are interested in self-realization. Srimad Bhagavatam is known as Parama Nirmat Saranam Satam. So those who are Paramahamsas, those who are Nirmat Saras, those who are Satam, those who are great devotees, it's meant for those devotees, those living entities. But why these kind of pastimes are mentioned? So what is actually, Srimad Bhagavatam actually directly teaches about self-realization. Who is Krishna? What is absolute truth? How we can attain? And how devotees have attained Krishna. So some of the case studies have also been mentioned. But why these kind of pastimes? Yes, of course, this is very much connected to Krishna, because if you go to the previous chapter where Maitreya Muni was describing about the Varaha Deva's incarnation. So then he further questioned about what previous chapter was mentioned about how he lifted Mother Earth from the nether regions of the planetary systems. So, but he further wanted to more understand. He did not just lift the Mother Earth, he also killed a demon. So in that connection, this pastime is being explained. So even if this is pastime, why this elaborate descriptions on how intercourse, why she is inflicted all those things, why Srimad Bhagavatam is actually describing. So this question is natural to come in the devotees' minds, because so far our majority portion of Srimad Bhagavatam is actually teaching about Nivrutti Marga, where there is no sex life. One should, as a brahmachari, only in grihastha life, that too for a very short period of that grihastha life, one can be indulged in this activity. Otherwise, rest all, they have to practice strict brahmacharya principles, they have to undergo austerities, they have to undergo penances, they have to meditate on the Supreme Lord. So this is what actually the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam is, or even per se any Vedic literature. In the all four ashramas, if you consider, Grihastha ashrama constitutes 25%. Even in that Grihastha ashrama, as per actual Vedic instructions, as per strict Vedic instructions, sex life is meant only for procreation purpose, not for sense gratification. Even that's also mentioned as a sense gratification activity. But rest may say consider about 90-95% of the portion of all the four ashramas, their period is meant for austerities, working for self-realization. That's why predominantly the subject matter which is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam is Nivrutti Marga, not Pravrutti Marga. But whereas other Vedic literatures, they also describe about this Nivrutti Marga, but there the Nivrutti Marga, or the path of detachment, Nivrutti Marga is path of detachment, is very, very less compared to the Pravrutti Marga, or path of progressive development. Pravrutti Marga is also path of self-realization only. But what actually happens in Pravrutti Marga, what Vedic literature explain, is that gradual elevation. Okay, you do this charity, you do this some pious activities, then you will get this life, then one after another. But whereas Nivrutti Marga is that complete cessation of that process of gradual evolution. It's like completely uprooted. All the plant of entire pious activities completely uprooted, and directly concentrate on the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then, in spite of that, why Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining, it's an important point to understand. So Srimad Bhagavatam mainly contains about Nivrutti Marga and about devotees, pastimes, Supreme Lord's pastimes, and the pastimes of some devotees. How did they attain the Supreme Lord? So these are for all of us to understand and follow the path of those devotees, How did they achieve the Supreme Lord? How did they attain perfection? But there are certain, these are do's, what we are supposed to do. But there are certain don'ts also. Like in a manual, if you purchase any equipment, so there are certain do's, how to install this, how to operate this, how to set up the equipment, all those things. But they also mention about don'ts, what you are not supposed to do. So these are the things from Srimad Bhagavatam we can understand what we are not supposed to do. Even in the name of certain religious principles, we may end up in doing the mistakes like this. So these are don'ts, are a cautionary instructions from Srimad Bhagavatam for the devotees. So those who are interested in absolute truth or self-realization, they have to practice this path. There is no other way. So for those who are practitioners, Vedic literatures give them guidance, what they are supposed to do. So certain guidances like in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, when he is instructing to Arjuna, he gives certain instructions. So from the 17th chapter, Krishna mentions about Yatayamam gatarasham puti paryushisham chayat uchishtam api chamedyam bhojanam tamasapriyam. So here Krishna tells about food prepared for more than 3 hours before being eaten, food that is tasteless, decomposed and putrid, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable thing is dear to those in the mode of darkness. So but what is the beauty of instructions from Vedic literature or purport is that this is the instruction that food which is prepared more than 3 hours, it should not be taken. So then do we actually follow this? No. Why do we not follow this? It is meant for those who are practitioners of Vedas, are progressive, those who are yogis, those who really want to do all these things. But whereas, why do we not follow? In the same purport mentions, any food cooked for more than 3 hours before it is eaten, any food cooked for more than 3 years before it is eaten, in the bracket Prabhupada mentions, except prasadam, food offered to the Lord. So there are certain guidelines in the Vedic literatures, but there are exceptions for them as well. Like in the 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna instructs about yogis leaving the body. How a mystic yogi practicing mystic yoga can leave the body. So Krishna tells, now I shall explain to you the different times at which passing away from this world, the yogis does or does not come back. So then Krishna says, those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery god in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north, that is Uttarayana. That's the reason why Bhishma Deva waited for Uttarayana to come to leave his body. So then further Krishna says, the mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. So those who pass away during Dakshinayana time, or during the night time, or during Krishna Paksha. So previously I had mentioned about Uttarayana, Shukla Paksha and daytime. So Krishna now is explaining about Dakshinayana, Krishna Paksha, and then those who pass away in the night, they come back to this world. Then further, according to Vedic opinion, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in the light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. So this is the instructions. Like, so does actually a devotee actually need to practice or follow or wait for that particular moment? That further Krishna clarifies. Although the devotees know these 2 paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. So Krishna himself is telling, even though all these things are there, but devotees are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical or fruitive activity. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So these rules and regulations are these regulations which are meant for gradual process are not applicable for the devotees, those who are practitioners of Bhakti Yoga. So for Bhakti Yoga or for Bhakti Yogis, there is a direct shortcut method which they need not have to practice all these things. So in one of the purports, while explaining this, Prabhupada mentions in the lecture, Prabhupada mentions that actually devotee, even if it is for a Garbhadana Sanskara, they don't actually follow this, what is mentioned in the, for ordinary mystic yogis or for ordinary fruity workers or empiric philosophers. It's not applicable actually for the devotees. So that's again, this fact has been reiterated in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. So Pracetas, the sons of Prachina Barhi, so they happen to meet, when they were born. So Prachina Barhi tells them to undergo austerities before they take up the kingdom and create progenies. So that time Narada Muni appears there, and Narada Muni preaches to them that, what are you doing all this meditation just to procreate and take care of the kingdom? It should be actually meant for self-realization. So you go and take shelter of Lord Shiva and take instructions from him. So Pracetas go to Lord Shiva and they take instructions from him. So that's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam as Rudra Gita, the prayers which Rudra taught to Pracetas. So then because of those, Pracetas offer those prayers, and then the Supreme Lord becomes very much pleased with them and he appears in front of them. So then after the Lord appeared, he is giving instructions to Pracetas what they are supposed to do. So the Supreme Lord is telling, the Lord then blessed all the Pracetas, saying, my dear princess, by my mercy you can enjoy all the facilities of this world as well as the heavenly world. Indeed, you can enjoy all of them without hindrance and with full strength for 1 million celestial years. So even though they were perfected, the Supreme Lord appeared in front of them, but the Lord is telling them, okay, you be in this world and you enjoy. But the Lord is also giving them further instructions. Thereafter, you will develop unadulterated devotional service unto me and be freed from all material contamination. At that time, being completely unattached to material enjoyment in the so-called heavenly planets as well as in hellish planets, you will return home back to Godhead. Then further, Lord Vishnu further guides them. Those who are engaged in auspicious activities in devotional service certainly understand that ultimate enjoyer or beneficiary of all activities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, when one acts, he can offer the results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and passes life always engaged in the topics of the Lord. Even though such person may be participating in family life, he is not affected by the results of his actions. So here the Supreme Lord is telling Pracetas that even though a person, like he is telling that, you are even they were perfected beings. That's the reason they could see the Supreme Lord face to face. And Supreme Lord is saying, okay, for 1000 celestial years you be in this world, enjoy the kingdom, rule the kingdom and enjoy the family affairs. But in spite of that, you will not become attached to any of the activities. Why is that? Because so when such a person may be participating in family life, he is not affected by the results of his actions because all his actions is offering to the Supreme Lord. So this is the difference between Nivrutti Marga and Pravrutti Marga. Nivrutti Marga, all the activities are meant for satisfying the Supreme Lord alone. There is no tinge of sense gratification or personal motivation, personal gratification. But whereas in Pravrutti Marga, what happens? Yes, they are practicing path of self-realization only, gradual process only, but there it is actually some portion for the Lord and majority of the portion for my sense gratification. That's where all these principles as mentioned in this verse, where the Lord Shiva will put those ghosts into the womb of the women, those who are having intercourse during that time, all these things happen because that is meant for sense gratification. If the same act, if it is done for the pleasure of the Lord, for the purpose of the Lord, then these kind of rules and regulations, these kind of foundations, they are do's and don'ts doesn't apply. On contrary, the pastime which is explained here, Srimad Bhagavatam, in the previous classes we had discussed about Mother Devahuti and Kardama Muni producing Kapila Muni. Similar incident. Devahuti is requesting for Kardama Muni that, as a woman, as a wife, it's my right to ask for a son. So now if you are pleased, if you wish, you please grant me a son who can award liberation to me. So, but there is a big difference between these two pastimes. Why? Because there, Kardama Muni was already in a perfected consciousness. He was situated in a perfect higher stage of self-realization. He was not attached to any family affairs. And Devahuti was also serving Kardama Muni so faithfully. And because of that service, she has also attained certain maturity in her spiritual consciousness. So in that condition, they also beget. But who was born? A great devotee, Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Kapila Muni was born. But here in the case, here neither Kaśyapa Muni is in that consciousness, nor Mother Diti is in that consciousness. So because of that, the two great demons were born. So this is the difference between the two pastimes. It is just the question of consciousness or the motive with which you are undergoing or taking up any activity. That's what happens in devotional service. Whatever you do in devotional service, the activity itself becomes purified. That's the reason Prabhupada mentions, say one example for DT installation. Actually, we need not have to undergo any such lengthy procedures as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. You just do Harinam, that's enough. But then Prabhupada also says, but what happens? The localites or other people, they will not be able to understand. That's why we may have to follow certain processes as well. Keep the local traditions or local customs also in the mind. But otherwise, chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is good enough. Sankirtana, Harinam Sankirtana is good enough. So, in devotional service, the activity itself becomes purified. That's why those who are Mahajanas or those who are great devotees, for them, there are no prescribed rules they have to follow, they have to practice. They are already liberated. Even in this world, they need not have to follow or practice any such rules and regulations. Like Rishabhadeva, in Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, it is mentioned that when Rishabhadeva was about to leave his kingdom, transferring all his responsibilities to his eldest son Bharat Maharaj, then after that he started wandering. So his pastimes, when you see, was it's mentioned that he was acting like a madman, roaming naked, eating whatever he gets, sleeps wherever he feels, wherever he gets some space, passing stool and urine in the same place so that people will not come near to me. So, but this, even though materially, if you hear it doesn't give a good feeling. But whereas Srimad Bhagavatam glorifies those activities. Why Bhagavatam is glorifying? The stool and urine which Rishabhadeva was passing, it was not like any ordinary person passing. It gives an obnoxious smell. But whereas that stool and urine was producing a fragrant smell. It was like a perfume, and not just for those who go nearby, for miles together. That was spreading around 2-3 miles. So that's the symptom. That's what Srimad Bhagavatam is describing these kind of activities as well. But also in the Vedic literatures, when Mahajanas or when great authorities, when they do this kind of activity, there is a word of caution as well. Why? Because the common men may misunderstand. They may not be able to accept, they may not be able to understand these instructions in a proper understanding, with a proper frame of mind. That's why there is a word of caution as well, that even though you may be a very liberated person, but still you have to be careful, you have to be mindful about some worldly customs. Like when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Raya meets on the banks of river Godavari, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on a South India pilgrimage. So as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Ramananda Raya, because already Sarvam Bhattacharya has mentioned about Ramananda Raya, that he is a great devotee. So if you happen to go to that place, please meet him. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to discuss a lot of Krishna Katha with Ramananda Raya. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not discuss all those things in front of everyone. Because what subject matter they were discussing, that was, not understandable by common men. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda used to go to a secluded place, that too in the night, and make sure no one is there nearby, and they would sit, and for the whole night they would discuss pastimes about Radha and Krishna, or intimate pastimes, or about science of devotional service. Not only intimate pastimes, even about science of devotional service and all these pastimes, all these subject matters. But they were making sure that others are not hearing, because they will not be able to hear or properly understand these subject matters. They will misunderstand, and ultimately that will be a problem in their spiritual path. So one such pastime, one such incident happens when Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. So before coming to Vrindavan, Prabhupada had received a letter from Prabhupada from Vrindavan, that there were two devotees, Jagannath Das and Nitai Das. They were basically they were doing editing work for the BBT. So Prabhupada had received a letter that they both have stopped editing work, and they are just roaming around Vrindavan. So when Prabhupada happens to come there, so basically Jagannath happens to meet Prabhupada in some other place, even Prabhupada before reaches Vrindavan. So then he comes there, then he tells Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, yes, we were not able to actually concentrate on, editing work. But Nita is doing a pujari service in Vrindavan, and I just came back here to meet you. So Prabhupada somehow, okay, even though you are not doing this service, but you are doing some other service, it doesn't matter. So, but Jagannath Das, he asked a question to Prabhupada about he asked a question about Siddha Pranali, some system which he had heard from Babajis of Vrindavan. So, Siddha Pranali is basically, as mentioned here by the secretary of Prabhupada, it is a concocted system of initiation by some of the Goswamis or so-called Babajis in Vrindavan, where they initiate a person. While initiating, they will tell him that, who is he in the spiritual world, what is his position, and what is his name in the spiritual world. So like, you are so and so gopi, or you are so and so animal or bird in the spiritual world, you are a peacock in spiritual world, your name is so and so. So this is known as Siddha Pranali. So then Jagannath is asking Prabhupada, what is the Siddha Pranali? Is it authorized system? The moment Prabhupada heard this, Prabhupada anger flared up like anything. Prabhupada was super angry. His eyes blown up and face become completely reddish. Then Prabhupada is replying to him that, he demanded to know why Jagannath and Nitai had been associating with nonsense Babajis who proclaim such things. Their Siddha Deha, he said, is smoking BDs and keeping 3 or 4 women, and our men are becoming polluted by such things. This is very dangerous. Then, the moment Jagannath saw Prabhupada's that condition, he was literally shaken. He started trembling because he has never seen Prabhupada such angry. So why Prabhupada is becoming angry? It's very much evident that, in the name of such advanced spiritual consciousness and all, simply devotees were becoming completely disturbed and distracted from the path of their service. Even later, another place it's mentioned, Nitai, he writes a letter to Srila Prabhupada. After a few more months, Prabhupada, every now and then would receive a news about him that, he is not doing even pujari service now. He is going to Radha Kund, stays for some 15 days, then comes back to temple, then again he goes back. Then one day he writes a letter to Srila Prabhupada saying that, Prabhupada, I need your blessing to take shelter of a guru who is coming in the bona fide parampara. Then he further mentions what is the reason. Because some Babaji told him that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself was not properly initiated by Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Then how can he accept Srila Prabhupada as a spiritual successor in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara when his spiritual master himself is not in Parampara or not following Parampara properly? So then Prabhupada replies, yes, I'll bless you to go to hell. So Prabhupada, that day, the whole night Prabhupada was so disturbed. One reason that, unnecessarily a sincere soul like Nitai became completely off track. He went off track. Another reason is that he had an audacity to write about Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master and ask questioning his spiritual authority or his authority on the parampara system. So this is what happens immaturely. When a devotee not properly situated or not properly understood the message of the parampara tries to just copy here and there and starts practicing here and there. That is the reason n number of places by Srila Prabhupada or by our senior authorities, they always caution us that why we should not read books which are outside of ISKCON or not written by Srila Prabhupada or other authors other than Srila Prabhupada. Why? Because we are not in that consciousness or in that elevation to understand those literatures properly. Even one of the god brother of Srila Prabhupada, after Srila Prabhupada left this world, was helping ISKCON to establish proper systems and all. He makes a comment that yes, what Srila Prabhupada has given is actually basic or ABCD of devotional service. But if you really want to understand post graduation or higher subject matters, then you need a Rasika Guru. Then you should approach another guru, because Srila Prabhupada, what is mentioned is all actually basics of spiritual life. What basics? Prabhupada, when he is saying that if you read Krishna book, if not entire Krishna book, one chapter of Krishna book, if not one chapter, if you read one page, if not one page, just read one line, that itself is sufficient to take you back to Godhead. So why do we need other literatures? So those literatures, if at all, if someone is interested to read, that is not with the mood of exploration. Let me explore certain new things. I've already finished all the books, now let me explore. Not with that mood. It has to be when you are perfectly situated. What is the meaning of perfectly situated? There are visible symptoms. What are the symptoms? First, you should become free from the bodily concept of life. Whether he is free from Icha, Dvesha, bodily concept of life. Whether he is really able to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra with that actual bliss, which is known as soulful japa. Whether he is really able to enjoy and relish when reading Srila Prabhupada books. No desire for sense gratification. Zero desires for sense gratification. Always thinking about preaching movement, always thinking about Krishna. In that consciousness, if a devotee wants, further some subject matters which are written by other acharyas can be read. But not in a condition, in a premature condition where not even properly read Bhagavad Gita and understood, and just to want to explore other literatures. That's not at all acceptable. So that's where even the devotional service, which without any rules and regulations, without any prescribed rules, but when a realized person follows, or when a realized person is in that consciousness, he makes sure that that should not convey a wrong message to the neophyte devotees, because generally our nature is to just follow some of the elders or advanced devotees. We should make sure that we don't follow that kind of a person. But even if a senior Vaishnava, if he is doing that, we should always make sure that what message we are giving to the other community or other followers. So from Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is another pastime where a Brahmana devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes to Jagannath Puri. So he wanted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So his name is Pradyumna Mishra. So he wanted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So he approaches Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, see, even I go to, whenever I wish to hear about Srimad Bhagavatam or other pastimes of Lord Krishna, I go to Ramananda Raya, because I consider he is more advanced in spiritually than me. So you please go to Ramananda Raya and hear Srimad Bhagavatam from him. So then he approaches Ramananda Raya. So when he goes to Ramananda Raya's house, one of his servants tells, Ramananda Raya is busy in some work, please wait for some time. Then after some time, he again reminds the servant, just I wanted to meet Ramananda Raya. So he tells, no, he's busy. He's actually massaging, he's dressing up, he's bathing, dressing up and massaging two girls, and also teaching them about some Jagannath Natak, a a drama to be performed for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath. So then Pradyumna Mishra thinks that, what is this Ramananda Raya? What is he doing? So Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that his activities, what actually he does that. So then Swahaste Karena Tara Abhinga Mardana, Swahaste Karana Snana Ghatra Samharjana. So with his own hand, Sri Ramananda Rai massaged their bodies with oil and bathed them with water. Indeed, Ramananda Rai cleansed their entire bodies with his own hand. Then Swahaste Parana Vastra Sarvanga Mandan Tabu Nirvikara Rai Ramanandera Mana. Because this instruction is there. So this can, some, neophyte devotee can take it in a very wrong way. So Chaitanya Charitamrita further clarifies what was the consciousness when Ramananda Raya was engaged in these activities. Although he dressed these two young girls and decorated their bodies with his own hand, he remained unchanged. Such is the mind of Ramananda Raya. Kasta Pashana Sparshe Haya Eche Bhav, Taruni Sparshe Ramanandera Taiche Swabhav. While touching the young girls, he was like a person touching the wood or stone, for his mind and body were unaffected. He was completely unaffected. Sveya buddhi aropi karena sevan, swabhaviki dhasi bhava karena aropan. So Ramananda Rai used to act in that way because he thought of himself in his original position as a maid servant of the gopis. Thus, although extremely appeared to be a man, internally in his original spiritual position, he considered himself a maid servant and considered these two girls as gopis. So this is the consciousness with which Ramananda Raya was serving. So the important point to note is that when these kind of pastimes are enacted, how actually as devotees we should shake. So that's where we have to carefully read purports to those verses. Like in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I think 7th canto or 8th canto, where Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean is mentioned, where demigods and demons, when they are engaged in churning of ocean, so the poison comes out. Lord Shiva comes and drinks the poison. So the demigods become very pleased with Lord Shiva for that act, because that poison would have completely devoured everyone else, including demons and demigods. So when they saw Lord Shiva helping them in that way, they become very pleased and they start offering prayers to Lord Shiva. So in those prayers they mention Lord Shiva as, you are the super soul, you are the creator, maintainer, you are the annihilator, you are everything. So those prayers, these are not ordinary some neophyte devotees offering. The demigods, exalted demigods, they are offering prayers headed by Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Bruhaspati. They are offering these prayers to Shiva, saying that you are the super soul. Then how do we understand this? Even this is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, but there, even though these verses, there is no, many of the verses doesn't have purports, but some of the purpose, one line purport Prabhupada writes, actually all these prayers are meant for Lord Vishnu, not to Shiva. So this is where Srila Prabhupada purports have to be carefully read to understand the actual meaning. So to this verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Ramananda Raya is bathing those young girls, Prabhupada mentions in the purport, because there was no question of personal sense gratification, when Sri Ramananda Raya was serving the girls, his mind was steady and his body untransformed. So because there was no tinge of sense gratification, he was completely free from those activities. Like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, another place it is mentioned that Atmendriya Priti Vancha Thari Bhalikam Krishnendriya Priti Icha Dhare Premanam. Atmendriya, if it is for sense gratification, then it is known as Kama, any activity. But if it is for Krishnendriya Priti Icha, desire of Lord Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna, then it is known as Premanama. It is known as Prema, or purified activities, or love. So because Ramananda was in that condition, his body and mind was untransformed. This is not to be imitated, nor is such a mentality possible for anyone but Sri Ramananda Rai, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will explain further. The example of Sri Ramananda Rai is certainly unique. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita has given this description because in perfect devotional service, one can attain such a position. So if that is the case, if neophytes can get distracted by these kind of pastimes, why it is explained? Bhakti, what is the result of bhakti? That also has to be explained. This is what the result of bhakti. If you are really practicing bhakti strongly, perfectly, what will happen? You will come to a stage where you will become free from these concepts of body, mind, ichha, dvesha, sexual desires. Even if you see a naked body, you will not become distracted. But that is the perfection of devotional service. Neophyte should not get deviated from this. Further, nevertheless, one must understand this subject very seriously and never attempt to imitate such activities. So this is where Prabhupada purports coming to picture, how we should accept or practice these pastimes in our devotional life. Then further, when Pradyumna Mishra, then it becomes evening, almost it becomes evening, then Ramananda Raya comes to Pradyumna Mishra, then he tells, sir, I really, no one informed me, that is the reason I became very late. So please tell me what you wanted to hear. So by then it had become evening, so Pradyumna Mishra leaves. He did not inquire from Ramananda Raya. Next day again he goes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he requests Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, did you hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Ramananda Raya? He said, no Mahaprabhu, actually it had become evening, so I did not actually inquire. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing some kind of confusion in the mind of Pradyumna Mishra, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Amita sannyasi apanera virakta kari mani. I am a sannyasi in the virakti, in the renounced order of life. Darshana rahudure prakritira nama yadi suni. Tabahin vikara paya mora tanumana prakriti darshana stira haya kaun jana. I am a sannyasi, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, and I certainly consider myself renounced. But what to speak of seeing a woman? Even if I hear the name of a woman, I feel changes in my mind and body. Therefore, who could remain unmoved by the sight of a woman? It is very difficult. So, it is very difficult, but Ramananda Raya, even though he is bathing them, seeing them, massaging them, decorating them and teaching them the different postures, moves during the drama to be enacted, but he was unmoved. Here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually glorifying Ramananda Raya as devotee, that what is the position of a devotee who is situated in a perfect devotional service. There Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is basically putting himself in a position which is apparently a lower position than Ramananda Raya, just to glorify Ramananda Raya and his exalted position, and also through this the exalted position of result of bhakti. If someone is engaged in that, so they need not have to practice any such prescribed rules and regulations, but because they are perfectly situated, they don't distinguish between mind and body. They don't get distracted when they hear such something about opposite sex or something about sense gratification. But that is not the case with any other devotees or any neophyte devotees. So as neophyte devotees, we have to be very cautious, careful. How should we accept these pastimes? So when Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining these kind of instances or these kind of pastimes, or per se 10th canto, detailed descriptions of Lord Krishna or intimate pastimes of Krishna with the gopis. So we have to take it in the spirit. Bhagavatam is explaining that yes, this kind of position is also possible. This is actually the result of bhakti. This will happen. But as neophytes, we have to practice the rules and regulations which are prescribed for us. We have to purify ourselves. When we purify, then we'll come to a position where one day we'll come to the position like Ramananda Raya, where we'll not become distracted, even though one is engaged in such so-called sense gratificatory activities. With this, I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.